What's up, everybody? Eric here. Welcome back to the Outlier podcast, where we talk all things abnormal. We're looking to understand kind of high end performance, what that looks like, how we get there, how people achieve it. And I got my friend back on, Richard. This is your second time on the podcast, but welcome back. Great to have you.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here. And we had such a good time last time that I can't see, we're only going up from here.
I mean, that's the goal. I never really underestimate my ability to dork stuff up, but I think we'll be all right. So,
I'm pretty confident we're going to do okay.
So one of the random questions I have, complete aside, but obviously your background is in psychology, and that's what we talked a lot about in the last conversation. And from a general perspective, I'm very curious what your take is specifically on the impact of like COVID isolation on traders. What impact do you think that had from a psychological standpoint?
Well, if we look at the broad range of possible careers or jobs, probably that's the minimum impact. I mean, traders tend to be introverted. They tend to be engineers. Right. They tend to be more technically oriented, or, focusing on the screen is where they get their jollies. So people come and go. So my guess is it's minimal. Now, I'm always happy to hear from people who said, nope, COVID really did me in, or man, COVID was a real boon for me because I got to stay home and didn't have to go into the office, and I trade part-time. So I would be really interesting to see how traders actually answer that question. But my guess is, on the scale of things, probably not so much.
Yeah, that's actually a really fair expectation. I share most of it. One of the things I do hypothesize, and I'm curious your take on it, is with more people being funneled into trading that might not have been traders before. We kind of saw that during COVID, an expansion in trading activity from the retail perspective, at least. I wonder if that cohort specifically, because during COVID, more so being pushed into trading, not being able to directly connect with other people, if they were looking to connect more with traders online, other traders, trading communities, and if that had any impact on performance. Because anything that I've read from a broader study perspective off of something like SSRN, Social Science Research Network, it seems to find that when retail traders get together and make collective decisions, it's generally not great for them. So again, maybe it's a little too loosely put together for there to be direct ties there. But I was wondering if during COVID, more people trading that haven't been trading before, those people, newer people, tend to want to connect with others in whatever they're doing because they know they don't know what they're doing. Did that lead to a potential rise in people banding together, sharing ideas, and what impact that would have on the experience?
Yeah, well, I don't have any data on that, or I don't have any information. So all I know is that when traders first start, what you mentioned is that there's just an overwhelming amount of data, material, strategies, time preferences. Oh my gosh, risk preferences. It's a complex adaptive system. And as a result, there's an infinite amount of inputs that impact other inputs. So it can be really overwhelming. And especially the new traders who say, oh, I'm an engineer, I'm a mathematician, I'm a physics major. We can solve this. So they come in with this sense of being able to do it. And when they start trading, the first indication of whether or not they're successful is whether or not they made a good trade. Yes, my dreams are coming true. Or, oh my God, I've lost 3 in a row. So they're very trade dependent, profit dependent, very short term. So next they say they look at strategies. And where the groups are really helpful here is for somebody else to step you through their strategy, even if it doesn't make sense for you, or for your personality or your time frames or whatever. If you have somebody else who says, here's a strategy, and then somebody else says, here's another one and another one, what you pick up is the process for creating and analyzing strategies. Then the next step is you get confidence in your strategy. You do the back testing, you do the work, it tests out, and then you go to trade it, and you got this confidence in it, and all of a sudden you've lost 4 trades in a row. Oh my gosh. Or the worst thing that could happen, like when I built a floor trading firm, is hired, a guy would clerk for me for 6 months or a year. I'd give him a badge, capitalize him. And what's the worst thing that could happen the first week?
I would guess if they win.
Yes, if he made money, because all the dreams, all the hopes, everything is future. His dad's going to appreciate me. My spouse will love me more. I'll get laid more often, or whatever. All these dreams are connected to making money. All of a sudden, they're going to come true. I am God. The best thing that could happen was when they come in, their hands were shaking, and Rich, I lost some of your money this week. I know. I watch the numbers every day. Okay, so let's find out what happened. Let's step through the first day of trading. What did you see? What did you notice? Okay, here's something to broaden, or here's a focus you had. Here's another way of focusing. We step through it, and then slowly they can build the confidence out of their behaviors rather than an accidental windfall.
I like the highlight there specifically on kind of the process. And that's something I talk a lot about. I think it's relevant because at least I started trading in 2007 when I was really young, fortunately. And so I've been doing this a lot.
You're still young.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, right now. I just turned 33 yesterday.
Oh man, you're so young. Oh geez. Oh, don't ever say that you were young.
Get like an AARP card soon or something. I don't know when you get those, but what I've really developed an appreciation for, at least in my existence, is an appreciation of the process and embracing delayed gratification. I think a big part of that came from just the early activities that I got into when I was young, things like martial arts, weightlifting. You don't really see instant results in any of those things. And you actually kind of go through periods where you're putting in perceivably a lot of effort and you're seeing very little out of it, but you just keep doing it. You just keep seeing it through. And I find that really to have helped me a lot in trading. Now, one of the things I see a lot in traders is that, and this is my opinion, again, seeking your expertise, it seems like traders often overemphasize any one single trade. And they kind of forget that each one of these trades, ideally, is part of a well-developed system that's designed to be bared out over years, hopefully.
Well, not only every single trade, but how about every single tick? Oh, my dreams are going to come true. Wow, I'm going to have that Ferrari. Wow, my dad's going to respect me. Wow. Oh, ticked against me. Oh my God, maybe I should get out. Oh, no. Oh, it's gone. It's heading to my stop. I better cancel the stop. I can't end my dream. So, yes. So what you talked about is process. And when you're weightlifting, that's a really good metaphor, because like for a long time I did an exercise and my back gave me problems, and it was just all sorts of things. Getting out of a car, I had to lift my leg up. I'm going to be 77 this year, so time takes its toll. But I started doing some exercises, and it's not like it's delayed gratification for me. It's like wow, I can feel my muscles growing. When you're at that burn place and you're just burning, say, this feels so good because I know it's given me the power to live the life I want. Wow. So what we do is we set up a process with our trading clients in which before I have to be disciplined, I have to use willpower, I have to suppress my emotions, I have to execute my trades. And what we're doing is we're setting up an internal struggle. But instead we say, I'm going to step into this process, and it feels so good to have the power to be able to do that. Oh my gosh. If we can do that in the moment, like if I'm with a client and they're executing their system and they've been doing it for a day, and they come to me and they say, Rich, it felt so good to feel my trading power. It felt so good. Because when we can get it to the point where they stop struggling and it's an invitation to feel good, wow, as soon as we do that, then we're out of that internal struggle and willpower and discipline.
That's interesting. And it leads to a follow-on question I have for you, because it's something I've kind of employed over my life. I think a lot of it's just from my time in the Marine Corps, where you're not really, I guess the easiest way to describe it is, at least for a Marine officer, our ideal leader is somebody that is the keel to a ship. Somebody that when shit is going haywire, they're calm, cool, collected, they have a plan, and they will work through it. Same thing if everybody's having a great time, that same leader is still probably more so leaning towards calm, cool, and collected. And what I think about in my life in general is I have no problem like feeling happiness. I tend towards happiness. I'm a happy human being. I'm happy to be here. But when I'm executing something like my trades, I really keep any of that in check. And one of the things I postulate, and again, I'm wondering if your research bears this out or your experience, where if a trader goes through this process where they experience elation, to me, what I typically think about with that is, well, if you feel elation, despair is around the corner. If you feel one of those, the other one is there. I think it's way too difficult to isolate just feeling good and never feeling bad. So when it comes from like to trading and a trading perspective, what are your thoughts on regulating that emotional roller coaster? Does it make sense? Does it not make sense to you? Is it good to have like a big carrot in front of you?
Be more disciplined. Use willpower. Shove those emotions down. Don't recognize them. We have a different approach.
Got it.
So when we feel, so it's first is awareness.
Mm-hmm.
So we have, in fact, I could even show you on a screen. We have something called our set scores: sensations, emotions, and thoughts. And we score them. And the goal is first just raw awareness. Like right now, let's do it. My
Sure.
stomach's still a little tight. My voice is a little, I'm going to exaggerate, a little more like this because I'm pushing it. Oh, so what if I wasn't pushing so hard? Wow, do I feel different right now? So the first is awareness. Number two is acceptance. If I judge myself for everything I become aware of, then I'm setting up another internal conflict.
Mm.
But if I say, okay, my stomach was tight, I was pushing my voice, and I said, okay, so I noticed it. Is that what I want? And the third piece is agency. So awareness, acceptance. So when you're trading, you made a good trade. Yes, I followed my rules. In fact, we have a term for that. It's a lucrative trade, whether it's profitable or not. And, you know, what you brought up earlier is process. We
Mm-hmm.
just keep going back to process, process. Occasionally you put your head up, check your outcome, back to process. So it's like a wave. So awareness, acceptance. I don't berate myself for having a tight stomach or pushing my voice hard. I just say, oh, okay, that's interesting. I was excited. I love talking to Eric. I'm all excited about things. My voice got agency. Is that what do I want now? Oh, I'd rather be really relaxed with Eric, really relaxed with people watching this. Okay, so I can do that. So awareness, acceptance, and agency.
Interesting. So in that process then, do you guys have tools to try to mitigate the inclusion of either euphoria or despair?
Well, Eric, we don't mitigate. We say, wow, like for example, the other day I was really down about something. And I could say, Rich, don't be down. Mitigate this downness. Or I could say, wow, that's fascinating. I'm really down. What's going on? Now, this is really important to me and it's not going like I expected. What do I have attached to it? Oh, I have some meaningful behaviors for the next few years. And if this doesn't go, that kind of dream that I was unaware of kind of collapses. Okay, no wonder. Okay, Rich, you're all right. So let's reevaluate the dream. So, in other words, what I did right there was rather than mitigating the feeling is awareness, accepting it. What is its message for me? So oftentimes we'll come up in private coaching with voices, different parts of ourselves that represent uh, a, a piece of legacy, behaviors, or beliefs that are preventing us from getting what we want. So, Eric, one of the things you talked about, and I don't know if you want to go there, but was in terms of your own trading,
Yeah,
taking a look at that process in terms of where you're at. I'd be happy to go there if you're
I would
interested.
love to. Yeah, let's do it. Walk me through whatever you
Okay.
need me to do.
Okay. So if you're looking at your trading and your product, you okay?
Yeah, oh
Yep.
yeah. I just
Okay.
have to like move around in my chair. Normally I have like a sitting and standing desk. So normally like every 10 minutes I go up and
Up and
down, but
down. Yeah.
obviously, yeah, I can't do that here. Otherwise it blocks the camera. So I just fidget in my chair.
Okay. So how long have you been trading?
16 years. So I started in
16.
2007.
Okay. If you're looking at your trading progress, what are you really happy with? What progress have you made in terms of your own psychology or mindset?
In terms of mindset, I think the progress I've made the most is actually probably the antithesis of what you guys teach, but it's being indifferent. I am if I have a up day, I am indifferent. If I have a down day, I'm indifferent. The way I think about it is at this point, I've done a tremendous amount of research on how I'm choosing to deploy. So I know there's efficacy behind it, regardless of how I may or may not feel. So, regardless of how I feel, I seek to execute the plan.
Yes. In fact, people who are in disciplined positions, such as the armed forces, and they've gone through hell, and the only thing that saves them is staying on track, staying disciplined. Uh, Airline pilots, uh, people, traders. There is a process of saying, I'm disciplined, focusing, I'm the hull of the, or I'm the keel of the ship. I'm staying on focus. How I reinterpret that is, I feel better as a human being staying on purpose. I know lives are at stake or money is at stake. And so for this moment, I'm going to focus on that, and that feels better. And we call that discipline. But if you check yourself and imagine yourself being undisciplined while you're on a patrol, or undisciplined if you're an airline pilot, or if you're undisciplined as a trader, and in that moment where you know the direction, you're confident in what you do, you're repeating your strategy. If you imagine stepping outside of that, it's going to feel like hell because you know the circumstances. So for me, I reinterpret many people, they say, well, discipline is the key. And I say, I'll bet you it feels better to stay in that spot rather than being undisciplined. So I respect the people who say discipline because what they've learned is that their life experience improves dramatically, and that feels so much better in the bigger picture.
Yeah, I think it's accurate. And the other thing I've come to really appreciate with respect to something like discipline is I find, at least for me, and I do consider myself a moderately disciplined human, but I still find that internal, I call my inner bitch. But there's this internal monologue with myself where I'm constantly trying to negotiate with myself between what I consider like my lower level thought process and the higher level thought process. Lower level being more reptilian, immediate gratification seeking,
Right.
higher level understanding, delayed gratification, pursuing something longer term. And those two are at odds for me very
Right.
regularly. So
Okay.
the
And
way
you call that lower part your bitch? Is that right?
the inner bitch.
The
Yeah.
inner bitch. Okay.
Yep. The comfort seeking inner bitch. Yeah.
Okay. Eric,
So yeah.
I would like to have your permission to have a conversation with the inner bitch.
Oh, he don't get to come out. It's not even there. We could try to find him, but I don't. Yeah,
Okay, so
I
right
will
now,
try
notice
to
your
do the
body language. You
exercise.
notice?
Oh, I was trying to like lean back to
Yeah.
get to diffuse the defense mechanisms and then to try to summon the inner bitch.
Okay, you don't have to.
Oh, okay.
That's not your job.
He's
I'll do
there
it.
anyways.
If I have your permission,
Yeah, of course.
I will see. Okay, Eric's inner bitch.
Mm,
Eric gave me permission to talk to you, and I would like to do so with the following understanding. I believe you are there and you came to Eric with positive intent for his life. And with that understanding, may I have a conversation with you?
please.
Okay. So you're Eric's inner bitch, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And you are there to help him out in what way? What's your positive intent for Eric?
I imagine the inner bitch's positive.
I use the pronoun I.
I prioritize immediate gratification.
So you're there to help Eric feel better in difficult situations. Does that sound right?
In general, yes.
In general. Okay. Are there times that you have a different mission?
I wouldn't limit it to difficult situations. I
Ah,
think in general, I seek immediate gratification.
gratification. Okay. And when you give Eric immediate gratification, does he feel better in that moment?
In that moment,
Yeah, forget everything else, just that moment. Does he feel better?
yeah, I would say so.
Okay, great. So let's just focus this on trading. So when he's trading and you, his inner bitch, come to him to give him a moment of inner gratification or give him some instant gratification, how do you do that? What do you tell him? What do you say to him? What do you make his hand do to the mouse? How do you give him that gratification?
Follow your impulse.
So you tell him, okay, so you are his impulse, is that right?
Yeah, I would give him an input to execute something that would make him feel better about his current moment.
Okay. So what you do is when he's under either stress or anxiety or whatever, you give him some activity to do that for that moment is going to relieve that pressure. Is that right?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Okay. So may I give you an appreciation?
Please.
A lot of people beat themselves up. A lot of people hurt themselves. A lot of people don't allow themselves any kind of gratification at all. Gratification at all. So the appreciation is thank you for giving Eric some gratification and helping him feel better in some situations when he's trading. So my appreciations.
Thank you.
Good. So now that we have that straight and you give him gratification, how does that work out in just in terms of trading in the long term when you're doing that?
Typically decreases performance
And how does that impact Eric's gratification?
negatively.
Negatively. So what you do is in the moment, like a drug or something like that, you give him a momentarily high, but there's over the longer term, there's a bigger price to be paid for that. Is that right?
Yes.
Excellent. So how would you like to give him well, let me back up a bit. So let's review the question. Do you have positive intent for Eric, or are you there to sabotage him? And both answers are fine. You can be totally honest. As Eric's in her bitch.
I think short term, the intention is positive in nature.
My intention is positive in nature short term.
Short term.
Okay. And long term?
I don't think about that.
Don't think about that.
Not
That's not
concerned with it.
even in your world. Okay. And your impact on that immediate gratification, since that's the only world you live in, and thank you for pointing that out. That's really important. Feels good in the moment, but as you says, there's a price to be paid long term. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. So Eric's inner bitch, most traders have a similar character. And most of their characters are unwilling to give up their job. For example, how outside of trading, or maybe just because of trading, how long have you been with Eric?
Probably since it was a kid. Probably since I was a kid.
Kid. 5, 6, 7, 10?
Probably around there.
Okay. What was going on with Eric where he needed instant gratification when he was a kid?
A lot of friction at home.
A lot of friction at home. Okay. So you came to him, you saw this little boy living with a lot of friction at home, and you says, I'm going to give him a shot of inner gratification. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we can really appreciate your job because the little boy didn't have many options or alternatives. He didn't have much power. He couldn't change the family. Excellent. So again, an appreciation for coming to a little boy who couldn't change his circumstances. And to get him through it, you gave him some internal gratification. That was really appropriate when Eric was a little boy. So thank you.
Thank you.
So you've been with Eric and you've a long time now. You're still a young man. He is still a young man. And now Eric's ability as a mature adult and his time frames have shifted. So my question, inner bitch, is have you shifted time frames along with him?
No.
No. Given what you did for Eric when he was a little boy and saved him the situation, I don't know how bad it was, but even for little kids, I know when I was a little boy, even the smallest things, because I didn't have any frame of reference, were just horrific. Looking back on it, I go, huh? But you really helped him out there. So would you be willing to expand your role, to expand your support for Eric, to help him in a longer time frame?
Yes.
Okay. So as I understand it right now, the way you do that is give him some instant gratification to do something, to move, to relieve the stress. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And you don't know anything outside of that world because you don't know about the long term. That's not even part of your world. Is that right? So there's a couple of ways we can go here, and I need your advice, inner bitch. One way is for you to start taking a peek out there, spreading the curtains a little bit, taking a peek to that long-term result, or develop a partner that can hold your hand and work with you that has a longer gratification time period. So as Eric's inner bitch, with his positive intent in mind, which way do you think would be more effective as an invitation to work with Eric on a longer time frame? Creating another part of him, or you expanding your view outside of the curtains?
The latter of those two, expanding the view.
Expanding the view.
I think so.
Excellent. Okay. We've got time. Do you recall a time when you were in a trade, an inner bitch came to you and said, we need some relief, we need some gratification, let's do it right now? Do you recall that?
Hey,
What?
today.
Today? Oh, great. Okay. Tell me what was going on.
I had a 0 DTE trade on, and sorry, just to stay with the exercise, am I explaining the trade from the inner bitch's perspective or from Eric's perspective?
Good question. Just as a neutral observer, what's going on with
Okay,
Eric?
got it. Yeah, so today there was a 0 DTE SPX trade on. The trade was going well for most of the time that it was on. Started to turn over. It turned over, almost got stopped out, no problem at that point. Then it started to get above break even. So then the first impulse to intervene was there. Then that impulse was suppressed. And then from there, the trade, it started moving in the other, it was a short strangle, to be clear. So I had risk both to the downside and to the side. So it started going the other direction, as trades do. And the height, I think, of the desired intervention was as it was moving back up, the impulse was, this was already a loser today. It's now a good winner, objectively. You can just exit now, take your profit, and then move on.
Okay. So let's go back to that exact moment where the inner bitch came to you and said, take your profit now. Okay, so imagine the screen. The market's going up, is that right? And it's heading to the other side of the strangle?
Correct.
Okay. So I want you to just stay with that and step into that world. You can look at the screen or just imagine the screen.
Got it.
And notice the voice in your head. And what is the voice saying?
Sorry, just to clarify, am I going back to that point in time when it first came in? Okay, got it. At that point in time,
right now, I am. So present tense.
Right now, the trade is starting to move against me in the other direction. Take your profits now so that it doesn't turn into a loser.
Okay. And if it turns into a loser, what does that say?
Lost money today.
And what does it say if Eric lost money today?
Genuinely nothing more than that.
Mm-hmm. And it gives you a feeling if you, okay.
Frustration.
Frustration. Yep. Okay. So if I was to step inside of Eric's body, how would I know I'm frustrated just physiologically? What would I notice if I stepped inside your body and felt that frustration?
Probably elevated heart rate.
Okay. Elevated heart rate.
I don't know what to call it. It's like maybe hyper attention, like very, very. Yeah, I'm not sure the correct term for that.
That's a good one. Hyper.
Yeah, the kind of Yeah, hyper attentive. Um, and then
Like you're hunting on the savannas and you're really close to the prey, hyper attentive.
yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
then I would also add on like annoyed in some capacity would be tied to that as well, like an
Annoyed.
annoyance.
Annoyance. Okay. And so in your body, we have a elevated heart rate. Anything else?
Oh yeah, sorry. Speaking inside the body. Um, I think the other thing that comes to mind is the battle between the inner bitch and then the higher mind. That's like as I close my eyes and consider that moment, that's the crescendo. That's like the
That's the
overwhelming.
So dropping down into the primitive brain, the inner bitch, and that taking over versus the higher level neocortex cognitive part.
Yeah, there's like a very big debate slash fight going on between those.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to diverge a little bit here. The
Cool.
movie World War Z. Have you seen that, Brad Pitt?
I have.
And at some point, he's running with his family up the stairs in a building or something. I don't
Yeah, yeah,
remember
yeah.
it. And he's touched by a zombie, which means that he could become a zombie and kill his family, or maybe not. He doesn't know. So he stands on the edge of the building, leans forward as far forward as he can without falling. And the hope is at that moment that he feels he's turning into a zombie, has enough agency to lean forward and fall and save his family. So it's that kind of thing. Once we drop down into that, when I drop down, my particular drop down now is eating my wife's too much apple pie. It's over. I'll say I'm going to have one piece. It's over. Okay, so we have that point. We're just on the edge. Our heart rate's elevated.
Elevated. Yep.
And what else? Any muscular things you notice? So right now, step into that. We're right at that edge.
Probably Probably like sitting attentively. So like right now I'm leaned back. I imagine
Yep.
when I'm trading, I'm more like that original
Yep.
posture. Yeah.
Yep.
So
Facial
yep.
muscles, anything?
I don't think so.
Okay. You lean forward, focused, elevated heart rate. And we're really close to being taken over by the inner bitch and just getting out. Okay. And as you notice that, sitting here with Rich, what would your preference be in terms of your behavior?
As the inner bitch, I would prefer him to have exited the trade.
Okay. Eric, exit the trade right now. As Eric, in his higher cognitive abilities, in his rational probability sense and long-term thinking, what would his behavior be?
In response to that,
Or just period, if there wasn't an inner bitch?
oh, nothing. It would just
Nothing.
be, yeah, let the trade
Let the
do what
trade
it's
play
designed
out.
to do. Yep.
Right. So higher level Eric that's watching this battle.
Okay.
So let's bring ourselves back to that point. Market's going higher. Inner bitch says, get out now while you still have a profit because it came close to losing money. Eric's rational part. What do we call that? Does that have a name?
Eric, just me.
Eric. Okay, and Eric knows that this is a probability game, and if he lets all the trades play out, in the long term, it's going to work out better. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think the overwhelming thought is regardless of the outcome of this one single event, the system has to play out in order for it to have any efficacy.
Right. So as Eric in his highest level self, his awareness of both of these parts of Eric. Can you look at both of them? If you're looking down on them, having this leaning on the edge of the building,
Mhm.
and you're looking down from your highest self, even higher than the rational self. Can you elicit compassion for both parts?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. We can have compassion for the inner bitch, and we can have compassion for Eric. So look down on the inner bitch and give him an appreciation in this moment. And you can
Thank
talk to
you.
him to,
Yeah, I would say thank you for trying to salvage the trade.
mm-hmm. And
Is the and supposed to be like a broader?
yeah, it can be, or we can just move on.
Not for, I can add an and. I think the and there would be for looking out for Eric in the short term. That's
Mm-hmm.
the motivation there.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I appreciate that. You gave me the message. I let you come. I've heard the message. I've given you an appreciation. And now I'm going to let it go. So try something like that. Try an awareness, an appreciation, and thank you, and let that experience come and go.
So I acknowledge during that trade the intentions of the inner bitch were good in the short term.
Okay, talk to him directly. Right now, in that moment,
Okay.
you're standing on that edge, and have this conversation with him while you're just leaning forward.
Got it. So thank you for your awareness during that
Mm-hmm.
trade. I appreciate you looking out for the outcome of the trade, this
Mm-hmm.
specific trade. I appreciate that you're paying close attention to each
Mm-hmm.
individual trade and
Mm-hmm.
trying to achieve an optimal outcome.
Mm-hmm.
The let it go part, I'm not sure what to do there.
Yeah. So I've given you appreciation. You've done your
Yep.
job. Well done. Thank you. And goodbye for now. And we'll see you again. Try that or
Got
something
it.
that's.
So I've given you the appreciation. Thank you for what you've done. Goodbye for now.
Okay. How does that feel? What do you notice in your body as you do that?
It's an interesting, honestly, the biggest thing is it's fascinating to take on the avatar of the inner bitch.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it feels interesting to like spend time viewing the world from that perspective that I
Yes.
spend so much time, to your point, just stuffing down.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. So what you're doing, this is just the start of
Mhm.
making that connection and a positive, healthy relationship with that part. So we're not stuffing, we're not disciplining, we're not willpower. In fact, the opposite, we're appreciating. That voice has a lot to say about your experience from when you were a kid and growing up. It's repeated patterns. What happens is when we're powerless and we don't have many options in our life, interesting your trade options. We don't have many options in our life. We create the avatars, we create the parts of ourselves that when we're powerless, give us momentary relief. The younger we are, the more that pattern replicates itself in every part of our lives. So in my example, my mom was depressed, distant. I remember one kind thing from her all my life.
That's brutal.
And my response was to be self-sufficient emotionally. Boy, did that help out. Man, that saved this little kid from going crazy or doing drugs or all sorts of other. I did some destructive behaviors, but fortunately I live.
Who doesn't? Who doesn't?
But that part, as I grew older, to be that self-sufficient emotional part, that's what I wanted. That's what I needed. But we tend to repeat the survival patterns that saved us. And I could go into some details, but I won't here. But I needed to repeat the survival pattern of how my mom treated me so that I could survive it. Sounds nuts, doesn't it? But
doesn't.
okay. So, but go ahead.
I was going to say one of the things I've always been so curious about is it's like, to your point, not limited to trading. It's like on a daily basis, I'm fighting with the inner bitch about everything. Perfect example. My birthday was yesterday. My wife made me brownies.
Happy birthday.
I don't need to eat. Thank you. I don't need to eat a brownie. It does not need to be in my diet. But then the inner bitch goes to, oh, well, your wife made them for you. You can't not eat them. It's disrespectful. You would enjoy the brownie. But meanwhile, the higher part of my mind is saying, I don't need the fucking brownie. So I'm not going to eat it. So it's like what you're highlighting there, kind of that revisiting of that survival mechanism, it actually clarifies a pretty significant question I've had for some time now, which is I already know the outcome of most of these instances, and it's Eric is going to do what Eric wants to do, regardless of what the inner bitch suggests. However, I never understood why it was so pervasive in so many different things. But that literally explains a large part of it, is that it's a kind of a subwritten survival mechanism that is reiterating.
Yeah. And sometimes it just pays. Appreciate the wife, eat the brownie.
I know that is like, it's the most compelling argument. It's so difficult to turn that one down because the way I look at that is it literally is selfless intent. If it was just a brownie that I had bought for myself, there would be no conversation about it.
Right,
I wouldn't have even bought it.
Right.
But because it came from my wife, then I'm like, fuck, this now just got more complicated.
Yeah, I tell you, we could put me on the hot seat here. Food has been associated with love and a real deep inner need. And I'll be damned that, just like that lower part that kicks in, that's really powerful for me. So, that has been a struggle, and I am reframing it. This is love. Is there another way that I would like to get love? My survival mechanism goes and says, no. If you get love another way, you don't know what's going to happen. They could leave you. You could get unloved. So just eat the substitute. Take a deep breath, Eric. May I give you an appreciation?
Please.
Yeah, you did something. Talk to a voice inside of you. Talk to a part of yourself. That's recorded. The courage you have right now to do that is going to touch hundreds of people who see this video. You have given an incredible gift, so thank you.
Thank you for walking me through that. And also, genuinely, thank you for connecting me with a part of myself that I spend most of my time stuffing in a fucking corner. So it is especially, and I do want to linger on the point that you highlighted, because you already know this. You've seen this a million times, but for kind of a Neanderthal like myself, it is kind of a novel realization that you connected the pleasure seeking behavior, the instant gratification preference, you connected it with a positive motive. That's really interesting to me because typically I look at it as obviously the impact on the broad system. So I don't even acknowledge that the short term gratification seeking is actually like positively incentivized in some capacity. That's a very interesting point.
And in some contexts, it's actually wonderful.
Mm,
And so one thing we have to do is look at the context, just like a trading
good point.
strategy is really useful in a certain market maker context. That gratification, when we're looking at some more central behaviors, for example, God, that's wonderful.
A question for you. One of the big motivations and kind of integrations in my psychology is stoicism. I'm a huge practicer of stoicism. And a big part of stoicism is things like when I think about mitigating unwanted behavior, most of the time, the way that I do that isn't just kind of just trying to stuff it down. I normally think of it more as like logically trying to reason through it. But even as I reason through the trade process is a great example. As I reason through that inner bitch still emerges from time to time and it tries to direct behavior. So, what would your prescription be, if any, that can really manage how frequently that voice emerges? Or is it something from your experience that is always going to be there, but you learn how to survive and manage with it better?
Or cooperate with it better.
Mm,
Okay, inner bitch, you want some gratification? We're going to go for a run and it's going to feel good. We're going to make love and it's going to feel great. We're going to do this. So hang on. We got some instant gratification coming. In trading,
yeah.
it just creates long-term dissatisfaction and loss of income. So, can you wait a moment? So what we're doing is like a kid knocking on the door
Right.
says, "Can Eric come play? Can Eric come play? Oh, I got to do dishes first, and then mom said I could come play."
I know that's probably a simple line of thought for you, but that is fascinating. Another thing I have not thought of is trying to give it that kind of angle. I think my natural disposition, as you could tell, obviously, is to just rely heavily on my ability to logic and reason through things. But it is an interesting process to actually acknowledge the other, what I would consider to be like detracting behavior in the long run, but to think through how to actually like interface with them as compared to just reason around them. No, we're not going to do that because of this. And to your point, at no point am I putting something else in front of it knowingly saying, but we're going to go train and that's going to be in just a little bit and you'll enjoy that. I haven't made that connection.
Okay. And for people who are really disciplined and it works well for, my guess is they have such a pleasure of the discipline process itself that stepping into the discipline isn't a struggle, but it's a pleasure because they've learned that it gives them long-term gratification. So I'm not against discipline unless it creates an inner struggle. But if we're stepping into it and say, wow, this feels better. Like every morning uh, I do my inside exercises,
Hell yeah.
3-4 days a week. And I say, oh, I don't feel like it. And all of a sudden I'm laying out my mat and I'm doing my cat stretches. And if I do that, then I do my other stretches, then I do some of my resistance stuff. And it's not like I even decide anymore after 3 years. I feel so good afterwards, my God.
Yep.
So it's an invitation. It's not a discipline that I have to do. It's looking for that juicy, good feeling after I'm done.
And especially focusing on like that positive aspect is a really interesting point, because for a lot of the things that I force myself to do shit quite literally all the time. And most of the time, to your point, I've found that the ability to impose my higher thoughts over the short-term gratification seeking part of myself is very rewarding, because it's very hard to do. Just like with that fucking brownie, there's a great argument laying in front of me. There's a great argument. So the ability to turn that down is gratifying and to a
Yeah.
pretty significant degree.
Yeah. And then you can say, oh, and then what you can do is celebrate it. Oh, that feels really good. Now, oh, let's not go there. Okay.
I have to not go there and to pivot to another spot. I do have a question for you. There's a study that I reference all the time, and I would love to pull it up for you. And I know we're coming up on time. I don't want to keep you too long, but I really would love
Okay,
your
no problem.
thoughts on this. So let me share my screen real quick. I want to show you, and I could zoom it in a bit so that it's easier to. Give me one sec. We can make. Okay. So this is a study. It's called The Behavior of Individual Investors by Barbara and Odine from University of California. It's an older study, but essentially what they find, they look at the trading behavior of individual investors, and they look to summarize some of the commonalities between them. And there's a couple of here that I really focus on when I'm talking, at least to my audience. My argument here is that if you want to be successful at something, it's important to do two things. It's important to see what the successful people that are doing and to see what you can pick up from them. But it's equally as important to look at the droves of people that fail so that you know not to do some of those behaviors. And there's three things in here specifically that I find very interesting. And I'm curious if you have a thought on one, two, all three as it pertains to traders. And I'll just read them out really quick for anybody listening to the audio side of this. One of them says, and again, this is in reference to individual investors. So this is looking at their behaviors. One of them says, sell winning investments while holding losing investments, the disposition effect. The next one is, are heavily influenced by limited attention and past return performance in their purchase decisions. And then the next important one is, engage in naive reinforcement learning by repeating past behaviors that coincided with pleasure, the inner bitch, that motherfucker, while avoiding past behaviors that generated pain.
The inner bitch.
The inner bitch.
That part of me that is learning to appreciate the pleasure it gives me, and I am learning to work with it to invite it into the appropriate context. So when you say you give it a negative connotation, I am inviting you to rephrase that in a positive way. Okay, so yes, we sell winning investments because it feels so good in the moment. It's like taking a drug. And we know we don't lose money if we don't sell, right? If we have something that's underwater, we don't lose money. I've done surveys. Do you lose money?
It's all fake.
Yeah, if you don't take a loss, and the answer is 80% of the traders say no.
Wait, really?
Yes. So you don't lose money until you've closed the position.
Oh boy.
That's the belief. So needless to say, you may be familiar with prospect theory, and that says that we get twice as much pain for a given loss as gain for the same same gain. And evolutionarily speaking, that makes a lot of sense. So we sell our winning investments. Yes. And we hold the losing ones, so we don't take that pain. Absolutely agree. Engage in
So,
naive. Go ahead.
yeah, to follow up on that for number 2, do you have any recommendations for people on that one specifically, on the disposition effect, the propensity for traders to sell winners too fast and then to let the losers run?
Yeah, just stop it.
Hell yeah. That's my man. That is exactly what I do. Shut
Yeah.
up,
And
inner bitch. We're doing
yeah,
it this way.
stop it. Have you ever seen the video clip? Oh, I just dropped the name. Stop it. Oh, I'll send it to you afterwards.
Yeah,
It's
not offhand.
okay. But the answer to that question, and if we have those tendencies that are neurologically started connecting when we were much younger, we can say discipline, stop it, and we do it again and again and again. So that's what I work with my private clients. And by the way, if anybody is interested in working with me in real time while you're trading, working with me on these deeper issues, the repeated behaviors that don't serve you, I'm happy to have a conversation with them.
And then I'll throw a link to your contact information and your website in the notes below for anybody that
great.
wants to check it out.
Right. So selling winning investments, that is built into our neurology from when we were on the savannas. Limited attention and past performance in their purchase decisions. Yes, if we had a winner, that's reinforced. Engage in naive reinforcement learning by repeating past behaviors that coincided with pleasure and avoided past behaviors that generated pain. That's a bit more complex. And I'm not sure of the impact of that because we tend to forget after time, but I think generally that's true.
So if you were to prescribe an activity specifically for number 2 and number 4 here to help mitigate both of those, what activity would you prescribe?
Well, what we do is we rewire the brain. I work
Okay.
with traders to create something we call lousy and lucrative trades.
Okay.
A lousy trade, or let's say a lucrative trade, is one where you got enough rest, you did your pre-planning for the morning, you were watching, you executed the trade at the right time, you stayed in it according to your strategy and your plan, and you got out. That is a lucrative trade. Now, it doesn't matter if it made money or it didn't.
Right.
Because we know over the larger sample size, if executed in the right type of market, it's going to make money. So if we look at these general things, what I do is rewire the brain. So because the pain of a loss is so built in at such a deep reptilian level, that rather than trying to rewire the neurology at that deep level, what we do is just reframe a win and a loss so that a lucrative trade is a win. And so, for example, if I offered you a flip of a coin and I'll pay you $200 for every time you call it right, and you pay me $100 for every time you call it wrong, would you take that trade?
Absolutely.
Okay, fair flip of the coin. Okay, I flip the coin. I do this, by the way, I do this exercise and we have a chart so people can actually chart their emotional reactions to it. And even me, when I lose a flip of a coin, I feel that when I call it right, I get a bump. And I know it's totally irrational. But so if I flipped it and you called it wrong, what would you feel?
I have to be honest. If it was $100 on one flip, I genuinely wouldn't give a fuck.
Right. So flip it again. You got 200. I owe you 200. How are you feeling?
Don't care.
Don't care. Right. So that is a great mindset to trade from. Most of the traders, I do these webinars and I'll do a coin flip and they all have charts and they're marking their emotional reactions. And most of them really care. Or when they get 3 or 4 in a row right or wrong, their emotions, and this is just a coin flip they have no control over.
Right.
So now imagine that you made a trade. You got hopes and dreams in it. You've done everything right. You've got an emotional attachment to the trade, and it goes against you. Oh my God. It goes your way. Yes, dreams come true. So the work that I do in terms of those things you brought up is to rewire the brain with lousy lucrative trading so that we are profitable every time we trade, because we have the 2-to-1 advantage or whatever it is. We rewire the brain with coin flips. I trade with them. Interestingly enough, traders, active traders who make off strategy or off the rails trades almost every day, when I'm trading with them and I'm there and I'm just doing email and just watching them and whatever, not once.
Yep.
Not once do they go off the rails. And why? I'm constantly inviting them to their highest self, to that agency self. And to make a lousy trade, to slip down to it, would be so embarrassing for them that they don't do it. So what we're doing is start to make new neurological connections. If I'm there, oh, I can do this. Oh, I can do it more. And then like my exercising in the morning, even if my upper level says, I don't feel like it, all of a sudden I find myself on the floor doing my workout.
I love that. And I think it applies something that really holds true, at least with the way that I approach most things, which is kind of like a building block modality, right? You're talking about rewiring synapses essentially.
Yes,
And that's a process that takes place over time with incremental steps, which
right.
I I really like that approach. There's one of the things I try to help people when it comes to building habits, because it's so funny. People will look at me and they'll be like, dude, you're like a robot. I always get such a kick out of that. Because it's like I literally consider myself the most disciplined, undisciplined person on earth. Because I every single day I have to fight with myself to do all these things.
Okay, Eric, I'm going to interrupt you.
Yeah, please.
What if you didn't have to fight with yourself? Can you imagine that world? You have
I
survived.
could.
What Marines was it?
Yeah.
You've survived growing up in a difficult family. You've survived the Marines. You've survived it by fighting with yourself. That's been a process that is part of your deepest survival mechanism. Imagine for a moment, what if? What if Eric didn't have to fight himself? What if there was another way to survive as an adult? And that if we were continuing our coaching work, that's where we would go. What a world of difference that would be.
Would be.
Yeah.
To me, the reservation I would have against that ideology is I'm a believer that if we're pushing boundaries, we're going into areas of discomfort. And the nature of discomfort is it's always going to be a certain level of discomfort until you adapt to that and then move to the next layer of discomfort and adapt to that. But whenever I meet that first layer of discomfort, that always lies and causes friction. I'm not sure, maybe you have a different opinion, but I'm not sure that a world exists where somebody can achieve and continue to pursue kind of next step performance in whatever they're trying to achieve without bumping into discomfort. And then I guess the argument I pose is that that discomfort breeds misalignment.
Well, I can say that that has worked for you. And I can also suggest there is
Please.
another world outside of that where discomfort or like when you're pushing your resistance muscles and you feel the burn, you can go, yes, yes. You can step into another layer of discomfort and go, yes. The language you use, and maybe it's just a language problem and I'm misunderstanding it, that I'm fighting myself. I have to fight. I have to push. And that may be a way of life for you, and that is okay. But I'm going to just plant a little seed that says, Eric, you've fought everything all your life. There's a way to step into challenges. There's a way to step into trading. There's a way to cooperate with your inner bitch in a way that's going to give you a life with a lot less stress and a lot less push and a lot less inner conflict.
That was great.
Okay, well, that's where we go next.
I love it. Richard, it is always a blast chatting with you, honestly. Especially thank you for taking the time to like work me through that exercise. And I'm not gonna lie, you were absolutely right in terms of like the vulnerability of doing that in something like this. I don't even like being on camera, let alone talking from the perspective of this fucking part of myself that I fight with all the time. So it's very cool though that you're willing to take the time to share some of this with people. So first off, genuinely, thank you not only for hanging out for the session, but also like straight up working with me, right? Like you genuinely just worked with me for a big part of that session. So I'm very appreciative of that. Thank you.
Oh, Eric, you are a pleasure to be with, to work with, to talk to. You're open, your integrity, your desire for a better self and a better world around you. Oh my gosh, that motivation, that clarity really makes a difference. So I appreciate you and thank you very much. Oh,
Thanks,
and inner
Richard.
bitch,
Yeah.
thank you for taking care of Eric when he was a kid. And I look forward to seeing your new job title in a couple of weeks. So let me know how that goes, inner bitch.
Inner bitch, thank you as well, I suppose, from my perspective. Awesome, Richard. Thank you so much.
What fun. Thank you, Eric. You take care and have a most wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you.